Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we are resuming our discussion from third canto, chapter 25, verse 19. So these are the beginning of the instructions of Lord Kapila to his mother Devahuti. Narujmanaya bhaktya bhagvate akhilatmani satro asti shiva pantha yoginam brahma siddhyaye. Perfection in self-realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For that is the only auspicious path. In the previous set of verses, Lord Kapila, he had spoken about Adhyatmika Yoga. And then in 3 verses, he had spoken about Gyan, Vairagya, and Bhakti. So people may get confused thinking that these are alternate paths to the same. So in the previous verse, he had indicated that bhakti is superior, because he had said Gyan Vairagya Yuktena Bhakti Yogena Chatmana. And now he is making this point more explicitly. So in 9 verses, from verse 19 to 27, he will unequivocally establish the supremacy of bhakti over Gyan and yoga. So previously in verse 15, it was described that the mind is a pivot for the jiva. If it is attached to the cycle of birth and death, and if it's attached to the Lord, then the same mind acts as a powerful catalyst to go back to Godhead. So here, what Lord Kapila is saying is building on that point. So he's saying mind is a powerful pivot, and now he's saying that perfection in self-realization is possible if the mind is attached to the Lord. So we see how he has built the case. First, he said that your mind is your fulcrum that will propel you in either the material or the spiritual directions. And now he's saying that the same mind, if it is attached to the Lord, is a short way in order to go back to Godhead. And Prabhupada in the purport, he makes this point that Gyan and Vairagya, unless they are supported by Bhakti, are useless. So na yujamanaya means without being dovetailed. So when there is Bhakti, then there is service to the Supreme Lord. So from these verses, one may also be misled into thinking that fine, Gyan and Vairagya need support from Bhakti. But in the previous verse, Lord Kapila had clearly said, Gyan Vairagya Yuktena Bhakti Yuktena Chapana. So does that mean that even as a supporting anga, bhakti needs Gyan Vairagya? So Prabhupada in the purport, he negates this. And we know it because we have seen that enunciated several times. The whole definition of bhakti is Anivilashita Shunyam Gyan Karmadi Anavritam. So that's the whole basis definition of bhakti. Prabhupada is restating that bhakti is independent. That Gyan and Vairagya, they can act as supporting angas. So they can act as something that helps in bhakti, but bhakti will never be dependent on them. So he says in the beginning of the second chapter of the Bhagavatam, it is stated that when one is engaged in the devotional service of Vasudeva, spiritual knowledge and renunciation of the material world automatically becomes manifest. So does anybody remember this verse? It's a very popular verse in the Bhagavatam.
Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayochita Janayadi Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yad Hayatukam.
Very good. Thank you, Prabhu. So Prabhupada is saying that actually it's the opposite. That not only is bhakti not dependent on Gyan and Vairagya, it carries Gyan and Vairagya within it. So Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janatyashru Vairagyam Gyanam Tat Ahitukam. That it will come by itself. The devotee does not have to try separately for renunciation and knowledge. Now, for practicing devotees like us, we do follow Jnana and Vairagya because our bhakti is still not that mature. But even in that Jnana and Vairagya, we are using it to nourish our bhakti. When we read the Gita, when we read the Bhagavatam, it is there to increase our conviction that yes, indeed, Krishna is the personality of Godhead. Yes, indeed, bhakti is the only path. Yes, service to the devotees is the most potent way. So all these things that when we read either as sutras or as pastimes, it increases our conviction. And then we follow detachment also. Detachment is, Prabhupada would give that example of burning wood. If it is wet wood, it'll take a longer time. So detachment is a process of drying the wood. Now, if there's fire on the wood, it will eventually burn, no question about it. But if there's water, there'll be spluttering and steam, and you have to keep heating it over and over again. So water is like material attachment that is slowing the process of bhakti. So that's why we follow it, but with a clear understanding that Gyan is not for the sake of Gyan, Vairagya is not for the sake of Vairagya. Both of them are essentially for only one purpose, which is nourishing our bhakti. Okay, next verse, 20. Prasangam ajaram pasham atmana kavayo viduhu sa eva sadhusho krito mokshadvaram apavritam. Every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul. But that same attachment, when applied to the self-realized devotees, opens the door for liberation, the door of liberation. So previous verse, Lord Kapila said that bhakti is the most, sorry, this thing is not stable. That bhakti is the most potent way to make spiritual advancement. So the question is how to get bhakti. So here he answers that question, that attachment to self-realized devotees. So, and you see that how Lord Kapila is doing it so expertly that he's achieving many things at the same time. So firstly, the point he's making is that it's the nature of the soul to develop attachment. That's there. Now it's our choice where the attachment, where we repose that attachment. So then the other point that he makes is that every learned person knows that attachment for material is the greatest cause of entanglement. So the nature of the soul is to have attachment. If this attachment is directed towards matter, then it creates misery. Now, the most potent way to bhakti, by the way, Lord Kapila says, is take the same attachment that is intrinsic to the soul, that is so troubling when applied to the material object, and change the focus to sadhusu, to devotees. And what will that do? That will open the door of liberation. So the beauty of the words of great personalities is that they simplify things to such an extent that one themselves begins to wonder that why don't we just do it? Because if you read this verse, it is at the same time offering us relief. It is asking us to do something that is intrinsically there, and it is offering us the highest benediction. So one would say that yes, I don't have to manufacture attachment, it's my nature. I also know that material attachment is the cause of miseries, but now I know that the same attachment to devotees is cause of liberation. So this is the simplicity of bhakti. Once a disciple approached Srila Prabhupada and as usual talked about the challenge for chanting, that when I chant, my mind is all over the place. And then Prabhupada says, what is the problem? I say, oh, Prabhupada, my mind goes here and there. And he says, again, what's the problem? And then finally Prabhupada says that when you chant, you speak. Your ears are there for hearing. That's all you have to do. Where does the mind come over here? You simply chant and you hear. And after that, the disciple, he really didn't have any questions to ask, because Prabhupada had simplified it to such a great extent. He didn't say that you do pranayam before doing jap, and you focus on this power that is pulsating between your eyebrows, or he didn't give any kind of a reply that he was hoping to get. He just simplified it to an extent that it became almost inevitable, that you chant, you speak, you hear, and let the mind do whatever it is, what has to do. You just use your ears and your tongue. Where does the mind come here? There's actually a book that is written by Shruti Kirti Prabhu. The title of the book is What is the Problem? And not sure if I read it over there. I think that book came out recently. I read this a lot before there, but maybe there's some, I haven't read the book. Maybe there's some correlation. So Lord Kapila, he says that you attach your mind to a sadhu. And then Prabhupada, in the purport, he gives the characteristics of a sadhu. Specifically, he gives the characteristic based on the quote in Bhagavad Gita. So he says a sadhu is described in the Bhagavad Gita as one who unflinchingly engages in devotional service. That's the quality of a sadhu. So where in Bhagavad Gita is this described? In chapter 9, verse 30. The verse is Bhajate Mam Ananya Mak Sadhu Revasa Mantavya. That one who is constantly worshipping me. Then he says that, Prabhupada says that Mahatma is a synonym of sadhu. It is said that service to a Mahatma or elevated devotee of the Lord is Dwaramahu Vimukteha, the royal road of liberation. In another purport, Prabhupada says that, I think he talks about lust, and he says that is the royal road to hell. Here he talks about the royal road to liberation. Dwaram ahur vimuktaha. And what is the road? Mahat sevam dwaram ahur vimuktes tamodwaram yoshitam sangi sangham. So this Prabhupada is quoting a verse from the Bhagavatam 5.5.2. I'm not familiar with it myself, but Prabhupada quotes this as the power of attraction to service of devotees. And then finally he says that Lord Chaitanya also confirms this. Lava matra sadhu sang sarva siddhi hoy. That moment's association with a sadhu, all perfections will be attained. This is Madhya Leela 22:54. Okay, next verse 21. Titikshava karunake suhurda sarvadehina ajat shatra vashantaha sadva sadhu bhushanaha. The symptoms of a sadhu are that he is tolerant, merciful, and friendly to all living entities. He has no enemies. He is peaceful. He abides by the scriptures, and all his characteristics are sublime. So Lord Kapila, he is expanding on the qualities of a sadhu. So in 3 verses, 21, 22, and 23, he'll describe the characteristics of a sadhu or a devotee. Now, in 21 and 22, he will describe the primary and the secondary characteristics, and 23 he will describe the activities of the sadhu. So these qualities that are described in this verse, what do you think? Do they come under the tathas lakshan, the secondary characteristics, or the primary characteristics? So the qualities is that he is tolerant, merciful, friendly to all devotees, ajata shatru, no enemies, peaceful, abides by the scriptures.
These are secondary characteristics, isn't it?
Secondary, yeah.
Secondary characteristics, yes. And the reason we can say these are secondary characteristics is because Krishna is not over here. So, so the person is 6 qualities are described over here. That is titikshava, tolerant; karunikaha, that is merciful; surda sarva dehana, that is friendly to all living entities; ajat shatruva. Ajat shatruva means both, that one who has no enemies or one who is not inimical to anyone. Shanta, peaceful; and sadhava means that he abides by, sadhava means he abides by the scriptures, also means he abides by the words of the sadhus, more or less the same thing. So the quality of surda sarva dehinam, being the same to all devotees, or being the same to all everybody. Dehinam means everybody. Srila Prabhupada gives the example of, He gives three examples actually. He gives the example of Lord Jesus Christ, gives the example of Haridas Thakur, and gives the example of Nityanand Prabhu. So he says Jesus Christ was crucified, but he was constantly asking for his tormentors to be forgiven. Then Haridas Thakur was mercilessly beaten in 22 marketplaces. And then after that, after that he did not die, then the people who were beating him, then they became scared. They said, if we don't kill you, then we will be killed. They'll be thinking that there is some kind of favoritism that is going on over here. So then Haridas Thakur, to show mercy to them, then he went into a yogic trance, so that all symptoms of life left his body. They threw his body into the river, and of course he swam and came out from the other end. And the third is, of course, the famous Jagai Madai incident with Nityananda Prabhu, that he was trying to help them. They beat him, and when Mahaprabhu got upset, then he was begging on their behalf. So these are the exemplary qualities of a devotee. Next verse will talk about the primary qualities. Mayanyena bhavena bhaktim kurvanti ye dridam matkrate tyakta karmanas tyakta swajan bandavaha. Such a sadhu engages in staunch devotional service to the Lord without deviation. For the sake of the Lord, he renounces all other connections, such as family relationships and friendly acquaintances within the world. So this is the Swarup Lakshan, the principal quality of the sadhu. Previous was tathast. So Anyanya means that there is no other object of his worship. So it does not worship Brahma, does not worship Shiva, does not worship the Pitras. He has exclusive faith in the Lord. So they worship with dridam. So drid means things that do not change with opposition. So when bhakti is soft, then if there are conditions that are not conducive, then it wavers. So if somebody's health goes bad, bhakti might waver. Sometimes the person is in some kind of mental tension, then it'll waver. Sometimes it's the opposite. So we had a devotee, and they were both the husband and the wife. They were nicely worshipping, but they had some internal things that they wanted to achieve. The day they achieved it, they stopped. So I guess it's not even bhakti. I think that was more like karma kand. Only thing, it was directed to Krishna. But dridam is that unless that regardless of external condition, the bhakti is the nishtha. And matkrate, that the attainment of the Lord is the only objective. So this is accompanied by taktva karmanaha. So which means they abandon all other activities. So this verse is very, very, it has a very synonymous theme to the famous 1866 Sarvam Pratyajaya Mamekam Sharanam. So Krishna is talking about both. They abandon all other activities and only make me the object of your devotee. So Vishwanath Chakravarti quotes the verse from 9.465, That pure devotees give up their homes, wives, children, relatives, riches, and even their lives simply to serve me, without any desire for material improvement in this life or in the next. And then Krishna says, how can I give up such devotees at any time? He talks about his own intense affection for such people. So Prabhupada, in the purport, he emphasizes that renunciation, so he's talking here about the tattva karmana, that renunciation only makes sense if it is replaced with attachment to Krishna and his devotees. Otherwise, it will just be dry renunciation. So he says that the sannyasi in the renounced order of life, but his renunciation will be successful only when his energy is employed in the service of the Lord with great austerity. It is therefore said, Bhaktim kurvanti yedritam, that a person who seriously engages in the service of the Lord and is in the renounced order of a life is a sadhu. A sadhu is one who gives up all responsibility to society, family, and worldly humanitarianism simply for the service of the Lord. Okay, next verse, 23. Madhashriya kathamristha shanvati kathayanti cha tapanti vivedastapa naitan madgat chetashaha. Engage constantly in chanting and hearing about me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The sadhus do not suffer from material miseries because they're always filled with thoughts of my pastimes and my activities. The verse is very, very similar to Ananya's Bhakti Asma. So Lord Kapila is answering the question over here, that what are the activities of a person who is fixed in this conception. And he said the activities is that they're constantly hearing and chanting about me. Then he's also answering the question that may come up in the previous verse, that you are recommending that one gives up all activities that have not a direct connection to you. But a person has so many duties. Duty to the family, to the parents, duty to the demigods. And it is clearly stated in the Vedas that if one does not perform the duties, they suffer. Miseries will come to them. Lord Kapila says, no. Actually, miseries will cease to exist for them. So this is his assurance that you can give up, and this is an assurance that comes in Bhagavad Gita, in the Bhagavatam, many times, that one who takes shelter of the Lord is immediately relieved of all kinds of responsibilities to the sadhus, to the king, to the demigods. So here is again giving that assurance that by giving up those activities, you will not be incurring any sins. The symptoms of sins is material miseries. So he's basically saying there will not be any sinful reactions. Okay, next verse, 24. Tate sadvah sadvi sarvasanga vivarjatah sangasteshva te praratya sangadosha harahite. O my mother, O virtuous lady, these are the qualities of great devotees who are free from all attachment. You must seek attachment to such holy men, for this counteracts the pernicious effects of material attachment. So it's very interesting to see that the personality of Godhead is sitting right in front of Devahuti, but he is still directing her towards the devotees. Now, someone might say that for people like us who do not have direct access to the personality of Godhead, the devotees are a proxy. That Krishna is not there, the devotees have Krishna in their heart. So we develop attachment to the devotees, and through the devotees, we get attached to Krishna. But this verse is actually indicating that even if Krishna is right in front of you, even then, the path that is recommended is to associate with the devotees. And the result of that is developing prema. So so what Lord Kapila is doing is that he is describing the process of bhakti to Devahuti. In this verse, he is talking about Vaishnava Sangha. So this verse also talks about Shraddha, because he says that desiring to associate with the sadhus. So the focus here is on desiring to associate with the sadhu. So that desire is a symptom of Shraddha. That based on Shraddha by nature is unsubstantiated. It's something that stands on itself. There is no empirical validation to Shraddha. So once you start associating with the devotees, then you start feeling the nectar of the association, and then you seek more association. That is no longer Shraddha, because now you know that sadhu sang is potent, is enjoyable. But when you desire to associate with the sadhus without actually having had the prior association, it is a symptom of Shraddha, which is leading to sadhu sang. So the word Sangha is used in this verse 3 times to emphasize both the positive and the negative effect of association. So first, Lord Kapila says, Sangha Vivarjita, that freed from material attachments. So this is those who are devoid of the Chatur Purusharthas. So this is the quality of the sadhu. Then he says Sangateshu, which is being attached to those who are Sangha Vivarjita, those who are freed from material attachment. And then he says Sangha Dosha, which Prabhupada says is the pernicious effects. The pernicious, it means that which causes destruction, that which causes harm. So if the Sangha is directed to those who themselves are desiring the association of the Lord, it is potent. But if it is directed to anything else, it is pernicious. So in the purport, Prabhupada, he talks about sadhus in the context of the establishment of ISKCON. And he says, for this reason, we have begun the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And then he said there are many societies. There are mercantile, scientific, and other associations that develop a particular kind of consciousness. But there is no association that helps you to become free of material association. So that is the purpose of ISKCON, and this is one of the 7 principles, is to create an environment where the devotees can associate with one another and with Krishna. So Prabhupada concludes by saying one should therefore give up the association of materialistic persons and seek the association of persons engaged in Krishna consciousness, and by such association, he will benefit in spiritual advancement. By the words and instructions, he will be able to cut off his attachment to material existence. I'll do 2 more verses and then we can stop for discussion. Satam prasangam mama virya samvedo bhavanti hritkarna rasayanaha kataha tajoshanadasva apavargavartamani Shraddha ratir bhaktir anukrameshyati. In the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and thereafter he is freed and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begins. So this verse is talking about why the association of the devotees is so potent. So Prabhupada says that the process of advancing in Krishna consciousness and devotional service is described over here. So what is the essence of the verse? Basically, Krishna Katha in Vaishnav Sangha. So associate with the devotees and discuss the pastimes and the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So again, the verse is potent in its simplicity. It does not, so many times people say Sankhya is analytical, very, very difficult to understand. But the beauty of the instructions of Lord Kapila is that he's explaining things in a very, very simple way. The potency of the instruction is understood by the ease with which it can be understood and acted upon. And these instructions that he's giving, they're like one will read them and say, yeah, I can do that. I could do that. Maybe I won't be able to do 100%, but I could definitely do some of it. So this is the devotional journey that Lord Kapila is describing. That seeking the association and the preliminary result of obtaining the association will be that the person will be infected with the faith that is present in the devotees of the Lord. And then from the initial association comes the desire to practice the regulative principles of bhakti. So this is the stage of bhajana kriya. That earlier on, when one associates with the devotees, then it is just because the association is pleasing. They're speaking interesting things, nice people, something resonates. But when that association continues, then you want to do what they do. And so I remember when we had taken to Krishna consciousness, we were eating onion and garlic at the time. So when the devotees would come, then we obviously cooked without onion and garlic. And then we would always ask them that how do you even cook without onion and garlic? Because at least cooking the way we cook, every cooking started, you would saute the onions and then you would put the masalas on it. That's how we would cook. And we would say, how do you cook? And they would say, come to our house and eat. And then we would eat and it would be so sumptuous. So then we said, okay, if they can do it without onion garlic, we can do it. And we said, okay, if they are chanting, we can chant. They go to the temple regularly, we can go to the temple regularly. So this is the initial stages of bhajan kriya. Then when this association becomes strong, so Vishwanath Chakravarti says that when the initial association becomes excellent association, then it results in anartha nivritti. So freedom from material contamination. And what is the symptom of anartha nivritti? Firm faith in Krishna Katha. That manifests as nishtha. So as one becomes more and more absorbed in Krishna Katha, so for faith in Krishna Katha means that one understands them to be factual. So as that grows, it will manifest as nishtha. Then gradually these pastimes that we listen or we discuss with the other devotees become direct realizations. So in this verse, the word samvida is used. Samvida means that they're no longer being received through oral reception, no longer being received through ear, but through the heart. So when advanced devotees, they read the pastimes or they hear the pastimes, then they actually experience the pastimes. So we have this famous example of Rupa Goswami chanting and thinking of a pastime of Radha and Krishna. And the pastime was so humorous that while he's chanting, he's laughing also. So that is the experiential quality of the realizations of the advanced devotees. So they're pleasing not just to the ear, but to the heart. So now nishtha becomes ruchi. And from the taste of these topics, the Joshanath, Lord Kapila says, Joshanath arises asakti. So asakti is unshakable faith. And then finally, rati. So rati is bhava. And will culminate in bhakti. Bhakti is prem. So he says anubhakti, which means that bhakti will automatically follow. You don't have to separately strive for it. So in a verse that is giving a very simple instruction, Lord Kapila, he has also embedded the entire roadmap of progress for devotional service. So now that he has described pure bhakti, Lord Kapila will change gears and he will describe Astanga Yoga. So I'll pause over here and see if there is any discussion.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, just a comment. When we are reading these verses, they resonate a bit with the Samsara Dhavana song. Some of the wording, like chanting, listening to the pastime, like the stage of a spiritual master, what they do, it resonates a bit.
That is true. That is true. Who knows, Vishwanath Chakravarti got his inspiration from these verses when he composed those prayers.
Mm-hmm.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, you can go ahead, Prabhu. I'll ask.
Sure. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. While hearing the class, it is clear the benefits of devotee association, how it is helping us to advance. But can you please clarify, because Devhuti is almost on the platform of pure devotee, almost. If I like someone, associating with the persons who also like the same person is very relatable, and we enjoy that association. But preferring over uh, uh, to whom we like, because devotees, one common thing is we all like Krishna. That is our primary relation that we all carry. So preferring more than Krishna, like associating with devotees is more given emphasis. Can you please, what is the primary reason, Prabhuji?
So in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, in the second, I guess they call it canto or part, this point is made that Krishna is often saying that service to my devotees is higher than service to me. Association to my devotees is more powerful. And the reason is that when you serve a devotee, what is he going to do with your service? He is going to use that to serve Krishna, right? So the devotee does not have an existence independent of Krishna, right? So it's not that the devotee will take the service for himself and basically swallow it and say, that's fine. But it all basically adds to the torrents of service that are being sent to Krishna. So same thing, association with Krishna, with the devotees, service to the devotees. They're ultimately a magnified form, actually, right? Because who was giving this? I think Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj was giving this example of, like, when we offer prasadam to our deities or bhoga to our deities, we don't offer it directly, right? We first offer it to our Guru, Param Guru, Panchatattva, and then we offer it. So why do we do that? We have the deities of Gaur Nitai or Radha Krishna right in front of them. Why do we go through them? Because they are actually magnifying our service. So it's not that they're swallowing our service. So you prepare a puri. It's not a Guru will go to Krishna and say, I prepared this puri for you. Right. So what he'll do is he'll say this puri needs a little bit of achar. They'll put achar on it, and then they will say Ravi Prabhu gave this puri and achar for you. So they will actually magnify your service. So benefit is for Krishna also. If he needs it, now he's getting more love. Benefit is for you also. Right. So that mode of das anudas is for the benefit and the protection. Second part of it also is, which is more for practicing devotees like us, is that it helps us develop a mood of humility, right? Because everybody wants to be close to the boss. Some people say that I'm a pure devotee of Krishna, and Krishna is close to me, and Krishna is always there, etc. And maybe I don't know their internal mind, but the mood is that everybody wants to be in a company. If there's a CEO, people will say I'm friends with the CEO. Nobody will say I'm friends to the secretary of the CEO, or I'm friends to the chaprasi of the CEO, right? They'll say I'm friends to the CEO. So that's the material mentality. I know the boss. In this mood that we are trying to cultivate as practicing devotees, humility is important. Right. So we basically develop this mood, and this is what will be our perfection also. Right. So many times Prabhupada has said, so many times senior devotees tell us that what will you be doing when you go back to the spiritual world? You will be serving somebody who will be serving somebody who will be serving somebody who will be serving Krishna. Right. It's not that you'll go back to the spiritual world and the next thing you know is that you're playing with Krishna or you're dancing with Krishna. It's not going to happen. Those positions are already taken. They're Nitya Siddhas. But if you're lucky, you will get to serve somebody who serves somebody who serves them. So it's also preparing us for our perfection. That is our perfection. It's preparing us for that perfection also. Okay, that helps.
Really, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for the question.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. To earlier verse, I think it is somewhere about 22nd verse. So we were talking about mind as a fulcrum, where bhakti and vairagya are embedded. Gyan and vairagya are embedded into bhakti. So also we discussed about the importance of constant association with sadhus. So when it comes to the mind, the constant association or more association, I can say, will it not lead to any offenses as well? Again, will it come under the? This is a clarification question. Sorry. Again, will it lead to a mind as a fulcrum and?
It could. It could. I mean, I think you're asking a practical question, and the practical answer is it could. Too much association results in offenses, and especially with senior devotees. Srila Prabhupada was very, very cognizant of that. He would change his servants frequently. One was to give others an opportunity for the service, but also for this, because the servants would see Prabhupada taking a bath, taking a massage. He was an old man, his body was frail, and and then they would make the mistake of thinking that the spiritual master is is material. So Ramapat Maharaj gives a very good answer to this question, and he says that the strongest antidote for committing offenses in association is by constantly cultivating the mode of service. So those two things will not come together. Just like he gives that example that if you go out of your way to glorify somebody, then you will not criticize the person. Those two things don't happen together. So if you serve somebody, then that offensive mentality will not arise. So if we develop that mode, that sometimes we are forced to associate with devotees on a prolonged period of time. I know I once attended a Japa retreat in Varshana. It was a 7-day retreat, and it was very nice. Also, it was very exhausting. It would the retreat would start at Mangal Aarti, and after that, so the retreat was done by Burjan Prabhu and Sachidanand Maharaj, and they would not let you sleep for the whole day. So Mangal Aarti, after that lecture, after that we would go to Tirkadam, chant. 3 days we were chanting 64 rounds, lecture, kirtan, lecture, and it was a small group, maybe I think 15 people, 12, 15 people. So by the third, fourth day, people were short of sleep, and Vrindavan is austere as it is. Especially the Western people, they were getting challenges. So you could see that in the first day, everybody was please accept my humble obeisances, Hari Bol, and all that. By the third, fourth day, people were just leave me alone. I just leave me in my space. And this was a point that was made repeatedly by both Bhurijan Prabhu and Sachidanand Maharaj, that unless you serve devotees, you will not be able to chant properly. So many devotees I saw they took this instruction to heart. That then they started doing things like preparing prasadam plates for other devotees, cleaning up the place for them, cleaning the bus. We had a rickety bus, and they would clean the bus for us. So that mood of like, if you do service, then opportunity to be offensive does not come. But otherwise, I remember Manoj once telling me also that what's that saying? Tall fences make good neighbors. So he was telling me once also that yes, if you see there are challenges, better than being offensive, better to keep a distance. So practical also. We can be practical. I mean, like I said, we act according to our realizations.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Can you hear me, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu. I can hear you.
Can you hear me, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I think my internet is not. Regarding the Jnana and Vairagya, I was also thinking these Jnana and Vairagya are also helpful for us to gauge our devotional service, or it will be a yardstick to measure where we are at also, isn't it, Prabhu?
That is true. That is true. I can't find a verse to substantiate it, but Prabhupada says, especially in terms of Vairagya, he makes this point. People would ask him that, how do I know I'm making advancements in spiritual life? And he says that, how much detached are you from the material things? The more detached you are, you know that you're making more advancements. And maybe that the verse that you quoted, Vasudeva Bhagavate Bhakti Yoga Prayojita, that may be one that that can be used to basically show that Jnana and Vairagya are symptoms of bhakti.
So one other clarification to the follow-up of what Prabhu asked Prabhuji. So the other point you made, also when Lord Kapila answering the question, when one does not serve responsibilities, like whenever he's more dependent on Lord, he would like to cease all other responsibilities automatically. So will it not lead to any taking advantage as well for some, like being austere for some souls is more but natural, but being austere also getting or seizing other responsibilities and getting to bhakti, how to differentiate that?
It's a good point, Prabhu. The cessation of responsibilities at that stage is actually a byproduct. It's not the prime effort. So it's not that the person says that now I will stop caring about my family so that I can do more bhakti. But it's the other way around, that when a person becomes so absorbed in bhakti that they don't care about the family. Right. So the first is Falgu Vairagya. The person says, I'm going to do Nirjan Bhajan, so I won't care about this, etc. The second is the symptom of advanced devotion. That, like Srila Prabhupada showed that to the extent that he stopped caring about his own body. So that's because their absorption in bhakti is so complete that it does not leave room for any other absorption.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Nice questions. Let me go ahead with verse. Which verse was I on? 26. Verse 26. Thank you.
26.
Bhaktya pumanjat. Different meter. Bhakti Puma Jat Virag Nidrya Drishta Shrutan Madrachana Chantya Chitasya Yato Grahane Yoga Yukto Yate Shate Rajubir Yoga Margaha. Thus, constantly engaged in devotional service, in the association of devotees, a person gains distaste for sense gratification, both in this world and in the next, by constantly thinking about the activities of the Lord. This process of Krishna consciousness is the easiest process of mystic power. When one is actually situated on that path of devotional service, he is able to control the mind. So in two verses, 26 and 27, Lord Kapila will state that Gyan and Yoga, Astang Yoga, are incomplete without Bhakti. So this verse describes the Yoga Mishra Bhaktas. So for them, the primary element is Astang Yoga, and the secondary element is Bhakti, by which one is continuing on the path of yoga. So the yogi, he develops distaste for happiness in this life or in the next life. So happiness in the next life is karmakant, basically looking for elevation to heavenly planets. So the person develops distaste for karmakant, both in this life and next life, is through piety. So being engaged in yoga, what is the object of his meditation? So Lord Kapila says mat rachna. Mat rachna means my pastimes. And while he is engaged in the meditation on the pastimes of the Lord, he endeavors to control his mind. And he will practice the correct path of yoga because of the support of bhakti. So even though such a person is following Astang, but because of Matrachna, because of his engagement in meditating on the pastime of the Lord. So this is the Mishra Bhakti part of it. Because of the presence of Bhakti, he will be able to control the mind. Because that's what the yogis want to do. They want to control the mind so they can direct it to the object of meditation. So when an Astang yogi, even though following the process of yoga, is absorbed in the meditation of the Lord, then the process of bhakti facilitates the control of the mind. Prabhupada said that this is the position of one who is yoga yukta. Yoga yukta means who is fixed in Astang yoga. And then Prabhupada says that Rijubir Yoga Marga, a very suitable word used here is Rijubi, or very easy. Now generally when you see anybody describing Astang Yoga, the word that is used is very difficult. But here Lord Kapila is saying very easy. Why? Because of the presence of Bhakti as an Anga. Next, Lord Kapila will describe Gyan Yoga. Ashevayayam prakte ashevayayam prakritir gunanam Gyane navairagya vijrame tena Yogena mayarpitaya cha bhakteya mam pratayag atmanamiha varunde. Thus, by not engaging in the service of the modes of material nature, but by developing Krishna consciousness, knowledge and renunciation, and by practicing yoga, in which the mind is always fixed in devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one achieves my association in this very life. For I am the Supreme Personality, the Absolute Truth. So this verse describes Gyan Mishra Bhakti, where the primary element is Gyan and secondary element is Bhakti. And the goal over here, that is for such people, is impersonal liberation. So what is the process that is described here? That by the power of discrimination, one transcends the modes of material nature through the practice of Nishkam Karma. So the process of Nishkam Karma, as we know, is described in great details in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So from Sakam to Nishkam is achieved by the practice of Varnashram Dharma. Then after sufficiently practicing Nishkam Karma, one reaches the stage of Brahma, or in this case Brahma is Atmagyan, when the modes will cease to act. So such a person attains the Lord in the form of Tat. So Lord Kapila uses the word Tat, which is the Pratyagatma, or the impersonal Brahma. So both yoga and bhakti are also included as angas of Gyan over here. And the point that is being made, that even for the impersonalists to attain impersonal liberation, there has to be bhakti. Srila Prabhupada, in his purport, he interprets Yogena Maya Arpita to be Smaran. So Vishwanath Chakravarti considers Yogena Maya Arpana to be the presence of Astang in the later stages of Gyan. Srila Prabhupada says Yogena Maya Arpita is one of the angas of bhakti. So Prabhupada describes Gyan as knowing to do the right thing in bhakti. So the devotional, the bhakti interpretation of this verse is that one Gyan, real knowledge is developing the understanding of the process of bhakti, and real yoga is meditating on the Lord. Okay, verse 28. Devautirvacha kachitva bhakti kedrishi mama gochara yaya padam te nirvanam agyashanvashnavaham. On hearing the statement of the Lord, Devahuti inquired, what kind of devotional service is worth developing and practicing to help me easily and immediately attain the service of your lotus feet? So in 3 verses, 28, 29, and 30, Devahuti will ask further questions. So her initial question was that how can I get relieved of the aham mameti? And Lord Kapila has said through the process of bhakti. So in verse 19, Lord Kapila had stated that the perfection and self-realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in devotional service. For that is the only auspicious path. And since then, he has been speaking about bhakti in very encouraging terms. So he has glorified bhakti on its own. He has glorified it in comparison to Gyan and Astang. And he has also glorified it as that which makes Gyan and Astang successful. So in all ways, he has glorified bhakti. So now that Devahuti has been hearing about the super excellence of bhakti, she is eager to know that what kind of bhakti pleases the Lord. And specifically what she is asking is that I am a woman. So what kind of bhakti is suitable for me, by which Agyasa Anavashnavai, by which I can immediately attain the Lord. Padam Nirvanam. So when she's saying for me, so she's saying, give me an easy process. Don't ask me to stand on one foot for 60,000 years. Don't ask me to do meditation for the 10,000 years that Kardama Muni did. But then at the same time, she's saying is that this process should be Anjasa and Vaishnavi, that it should yield quick results. And Padam Nirvanam. So Padam Nirvanam also means without obstacles. So she's also saying that it should not be a difficult path. So you can see that Devahuti is taking full advantage of being the mother of the Lord. So she is saying, give me something that is simple, that I perform without a lot of difficulty, but at the same time, it should give me the most superlative results very, very quickly. So in response to, essentially she's asking for a deeper explanation of bhakti that is actually suitable for those who are not very strong themselves. Essentially for people like us. Prabhupada states in the purport that it is stated in Bhagavad Gita that no one is barred from rendering service to the Lord. Whether one is a woman or a laborer or a merchant, if he engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord, he is promoted to the highest perfection. So this appears in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 32, where Krishna says that that those who take shelter of me, even though they are of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, Shudras, can attain the supreme destination. Okay, verse 29. Yo yogo bhagavad bhano nirvantat manastvayoditaha kidrisha kati changani yatastatva vabodhanam. The mystic yoga system, as you have explained, aims at the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is meant for completely ending material existence. Please let me know the nature of that yoga system. How many ways are there by which one can understand in truth that sublime yoga? So Prabhupada explains that this verse is spoken by Devahuti to indicate that she exclusively wants to know about the process of bhakti. They say Devahuti especially refers to the bhakti yoga system, which has been primarily explained by the Lord. So in a summary way, it has been explained. So he says the word nirvanatman is very significant. Unless one accepts the process of devotional service, one cannot end the continuation of material existence. So, Yoga Bhagavata Bana. So, Ban means arrow. Bhagavat means the Lord. And yoga is the process of connecting. So, the nature of an arrow is that it goes straight. You can't throw an arrow and it will basically go in a circuitous route. It goes straight from where it is thrown to the target. So essentially she is asking for the straight and direct process, Bana, yoga, that will connect me to the personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada says the Bana is also sharp and swift, that it goes directly to the personality of Godhead, penetrating the regions of the impersonal Brahman and the localized Paramatma. So Prabhupada in the purport say that sometime it is asked how the living entity falls down from the spiritual world to the material world. Here is the answer. Unless one is elevated to the Vaikuntha planets, directly in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is prone to fall down either from impersonal Brahman realization or from an ecstatic trance of meditation. So, Devahuti has so far asked 5 questions. So the first question she asked was that I have been engaged by your Maya in Aham Mameti. So I must ask you to dispel it. So that question was asked in the 10th verse of this chapter. And Lord Kapila answered it in verses 12 to 18 of this chapter. Then in the next verse, Devahuti, in the 11th verse, Devahuti asked that, explain to me about Purush, Prakriti and Jiva. So the Lord will answer this in the next chapter, in the 26th chapter, from verses 3 to 8. Then in this verse, this is 28, right? 29. So in the previous verse, she had asked that what kind of bhakti should I perform to attain your lotus feet? This will be answered by the Lord in verses 31 to 44. 14 verses, he will answer it. Then in verse 29, which is this verse, she asks that, explain the knowledge by which one understands the tattvas. So this is essentially an expansion of the question that she asked in verse 11. When she asked about Purusha, Prakriti and Jiva, here she is asking about the knowledge that will help her understand Purusha, Prakriti and Jiva. The purpose of that knowledge is Bhagavad Ban. The purpose of the knowledge is to take her directly to the Lord. The answer to this question is 2 chapters, chapter 26 and chapter 27. So chapter 26 deals with the whole process of creation again, and chapter 27 deals with the subsequent activities. The 5th question that she has asked in this verse is, explain the yoga aimed at the Lord for liberation. How many limbs does it have? And this will be answered by the Lord in chapter 28. So I'll share this table with Prem Kishore Prabhu. I'm not sure if it's already there in the tables that I shared. If not, I'll put it there and share it. It gives a roadmap of the questions and answers between Devahuti and Lord Kapila.
We don't have it here.
It's not there? Okay. Verse 30. Tadetam vijanihi yatha aham mandadhir hare sukham buddhye durbodham yo shabhavat anugraha. My dear son Kapil, after all, I am a woman. It is very difficult for me to understand the absolute truth because my intelligence is not very great. But if you will kindly explain it to me, even though I'm not very intelligent, I can understand it and thereby feel transcendental happiness. So Srila Prabhupada glorifies this mood of a submissive disciple. He does not really, so he doesn't comment on the fact that Devahuti being a woman is less intelligent, but he's glorifying the position of a disciple. That's the position a disciple should take in front of a guru, that my intelligence is not very great, but if you explain it to me, then I can understand. Right? Because being in the conception that my intelligence is not very great, it is a double-edged sword. Right? Because you say my intelligence is not very great, and your spiritual master starts explaining to you, and you say, I have no idea what you're saying because my intelligence is not very great. Then you say, okay, let me explain to you, but I can't understand because my intelligence is not very great. So the mood is that my intelligence is not very great, but if you explain it to me, even though I'm not very intelligent, I can understand it. So what it means is, and Prabhupada quotes the 8th, from the 8th verse of the Guru Ashtakam, Yasya Prasada Bhagavad Prasada, that when the spiritual master explains to you, then your ability to understand what he says is the mercy of the spiritual master. So yes, you're not very intelligent. But that does not mean that you will not understand what the spiritual master is saying. If you're not understanding, that means you're not opening yourself to the mercy of the spiritual master. I remember once, at that time, he was a devotee. He was a new devotee. And Rampa Maharaj called him and said that, I think you're ready for initiation, so be prepared. On this and this date, I will initiate you. And so the devotee said, but Maharaj, I'm not qualified. And then Maharaj said, of course, I know you're not qualified. You'll never be qualified. So, and then he started laughing. So that's the relationship between a guru and a disciple. That the disciple never thinks that I'm fully qualified now. Even to be a disciple, they never think like that. That I'm fully qualified. But that does not become impediment in their spiritual advancement. Because even though they may not be fully qualified, but they're always qualified to receive the mercy of the Lord or the mercy of the spiritual master. And that is what? So that is why she says that I can understand it and thereby feel transcendental happiness. So the mercy of the spiritual master, the mercy of the Lord is what makes things plausible. Okay, I'll pause over here, and this is also the end of the questions of Devahuti. So next time we'll discuss the response of the Lord. Also, if you have any comments or discussion.
Just a comment, Prabhu. The one which we just said, my intelligence is not great. This is the formula even for our practical, whether it is the family relations or the corporate relations.
That is true. Well, actually, in corporate, it's very competitive. People try to show the opposite, right? They may not know it, and they will still say that yes.
The higher you go in the ladder, Prabhu, you'll be seeing that, oh, if you accept that you don't know, that is a big thing.
Yes.
And I've seen that. So
Yeah. I think when people are at the level where they don't have to put on a show, then then they become more genuine. Especially in the IT setting, I know sometimes when presentations are being done to senior people, they'll say that I have no idea what you're talking about. This is beyond my grasp. Just tell me in simple terms.
Yep.
Because people will start talking about from complicated IT terms, and they'll openly accept the fact I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
One thing I was like wondering, I don't know whether it's on purpose, like, I mean, like only, so the verses that we're talking about pure devotional service, right? So one thing that was mentioned was that only about association, right? There was nothing mentioned about, Shravanam Kirtanam or anything like on those lines, right? I mean, the only thing that was basically mentioned when we were talking about the devotees, characteristics of the devotee, of a pure devotee, like, or pure devotional service.
Shravan and Kirtan was mentioned, right? Because the verse said that the glorification, Krishna Katha in the association of devotees. That was where the whole discussion started. So that is Shravan Kirtan, and in the association of devotees, and then the focus basically turned to who are devotees and how do you associate with them. But I think the initial context remains that you associate with them in the mood of Shravan Kirtan.
Right.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. This is the Sadhu Sangashtaka verses, right?
They are. I wasn't aware there was an ashtak for Sadhu Sangha.
Something like that, because I have a vague memory that Maharaj had spoken about it in Seattle in 2011 and 12, the same theme.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know. Let me
Yeah.
do some research, and if you find out, do let me know also.
Yes, Prabhu. I was trying to search for it, but the website has changed. So I was having a hard time navigating it. But I'll try to find it.
I know the search there never works. The website is good, but I think a good search engine would help over there. You're at rompatswamy.com, right?
Yes, I have to go to the older website from that. It's in the older website.
Oh, okay. So what does it say the name again, Varshana? What Ashtakam?
I think it's Sadhu Sangashtakam, if I remember it. And it was in 2011 or 12 in Seattle. It was a Thanksgiving seminar in November.
Yeah. I didn't realize you lived in Seattle. I thought you lived in California.
No, I still do. I was hearing it that time.
Oh, okay.
Online.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay, we'll end over here. Thank you. Vancha kalpatarubhayasya kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Thai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. All glories to the devotees.
Hare Krishna.